I should have sensed something was wrong the moment my son handed me that glossy gold envelope. A luxury cruise ticket wrapped in a smile he hadn't used on me in years. My name is Evan Turner. I'm 64 years old, and until recently, I still believed I understood my son, Jason. I still believed family meant something permanent, something unbreakable. I still believed a father could never become a target in his own child's eyes. But no better now. Before the story begins, hit like and subscribe for more real-life twists. Comment ready if you want the full truth. Everything began 2 days before the cruise, when Jason knocked on the door of my Seattle home with a bright grin that didn't match the tension in his shoulders. I opened the door, and there he stood, hugging a gold envelope like it contained a miracle. "Dad," he said, stepping inside and kissing my cheek, "I have something for you. Something big." I remember smiling, because even though he'd been distant for months, barely calling, barely visiting, I always held on to hope that one day he'd look at me the way he used to, like a son who admired the man who raised him. He handed me the envelope as if it were a gift from God. "Open it," he urged. Inside were first-class cruise tickets for a 7-day Caribbean trip. The kind of trip I'd only seen in commercials. Turquoise water, white beaches, glossy brochures promising luxury beyond imagination. My throat tightened. "Jason, this must have cost you a fortune." He smiled gently. "Dad, you've sacrificed your entire life for me. I want you to relax. Amanda helped plan everything. You deserve this." It should have felt like love. Instead, it felt rehearsed. But I pushed that thought away. "He's my son," I told myself. "He's trying to do something good. Don't question it." "When do I leave?" I asked. "Day after tomorrow. Just pack light." Amanda took care of all the details. I nodded, pretending to be excited, pretending my instincts weren't screaming at me. That night, while folding shirts in my suitcase, I told myself I was imagining things. Jason had always been a little distant, a little self-involved, but he wasn't cruel. He wasn't dangerous. He couldn't be. Still, something gnawed at the back of my mind, a cold, uneasy whisper I refused to listen to. I should have. On the morning of the trip, I got dressed, grabbed my bags, and headed for the door. Halfway down the stairs, I realized I'd forgotten my blood pressure medication. I cursed under my breath, turned around, and went back inside. What happened next shattered everything I thought I knew about my son. As I opened the door, quietly, I heard Jason's voice in the living room. He was on a call, speaking low but clear enough that I caught every word. "No, Amanda, he left already," he said, sounding colder than I had ever heard. "He has no clue. Everything's going exactly how he planned." I froze behind the doorway. Planned? He never used that word lightly. Amanda's muffled voice came through the speaker, though I couldn't make out her words. Jason continued. "Relax. It's a one-way ticket. Once he's out at sea, it'll look like an accident. Old man falls overboard. Happens all the time." My stomach twisted violently. He was talking about me. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. Jason added, "Dad's life insurance is $250,000. And with the house, that's another $350,000. Enough to clear everything. Enough to start over." My knees almost buckled. My own son was talking about my death like it was a financial strategy. Amanda said something again. Jason's reply was a dagger. "We'll cry. We'll look devastated. Everyone will pity us. It's perfect." A coldness spread through me. Slowly, methodically, painfully. The boy I had raised, fed, clothed, and supported through every hardship had just mapped out the details of my murder. I felt something inside me crack. Not just heartbreak, but disbelief. A father can't prepare for that kind of betrayal. There's no handbook for the moment your child decides your life is worth more dead than alive. I slipped out of the house, silently, making sure he didn't hear me. As I walked down the sidewalk, my mind raced. My breathing was shallow, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. But beneath the fear, something else formed, something sharp, something steady. I made a decision. I was still going on that cruise. If my son thought I was a helpless, aging man who wouldn't see through his plan, then he didn't know me at all. Jason Turner was going to learn who his father really was. The taxi ride to the airport felt surreal. Seattle drifted past the window, ordinary as ever, while my world unraveled. Trees, houses, coffee shops, all the familiar pieces of a life I thought I understood, passed by while I stared out, replaying Jason's words again and again. When I finally reached Miami and boarded the ship, everything felt too bright, too cheerful. Hundreds of people rushed aboard with excitement. Families, couples, retirees, teenagers with cameras. And there I was, a 64-year-old man boarding a ship his son expected him to die on. I tried to focus on my surroundings. The ship was enormous, 12 decks, wide open balconies, polished glass, endless hallways, and thousands of places a man could accidentally fall from. Jason had chosen well, but so had I. When I reached my cabin, a beautiful room with a private balcony overlooking the endless ocean, I felt a chill. Jason had paid for first-class luxury. Of course he did. A nicer balcony meant a bigger drop. I sat on the bed, staring at the horizon. The sun reflected off the waves, turning the water into molten gold. It should have been peaceful. Instead, it looked like the place where my son hoped my life would end. But I wasn't planning to die. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. The number of Frank Monroe, a private investigator I'd met through a neighbor. Monroe Investigations, a deep voice answered. "Frank, it's Evan Turner," I said quietly. "I need help. Urgently." "Mr. Turner," he said, voice sharpening. "What's going on?" "My son is trying to kill me." There was a long silence. Then Monroe said, "Tell me everything." I did. Every word, every detail, every piece of betrayal. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. "Mr. Turner, this is serious. I'll start digging immediately. I need $500 wired as a retainer. And listen closely, don't trust anyone on that ship." "I won't," I promised. "Especially," he added, "don't trust your son if he calls you." I stared out at the darkening sky. "I won't make that mistake again." I hung up and sat silently, letting the ocean wind brush over me. Jason Turner didn't know who he was dealing with, but he was about to find out. After hanging up with Detective Monroe, I sat in my cabin for a long time, feeling the vibration of the ship beneath my feet as it drifted farther from shore. The coastline faded into a thin gray line, swallowed slowly by the ocean. I wasn't frightened anymore, not in the way someone unprepared for danger might be. What I felt was a kind of sharp, focused awareness. Every sound, every movement, every shadow felt meaningful. My son wanted me dead. That reality wrapped itself around me like cold iron. But I wasn't about to die for him. I needed a plan, one smarter, quieter, and faster than whatever he had orchestrated. I walked out of my cabin, forcing myself to blend in with the happy vacationers around me. I smiled when people smiled at me, nodded when someone said good afternoon, pretended to be another retiree enjoying his dream cruise. Inside, my mind was calculating every angle of survival. As I explored the ship, I made mental notes. Where the security cameras were, where the stairwells led, which decks were crowded and which were quiet, which spots offered escape routes and which could become traps. My balcony room was suddenly the most dangerous place on the ship. Jason didn't choose a balcony out of generosity. He chose it because it created an easy opportunity. Push, slip, fall. End of story. I walked away from my cabin with that thought sitting hard in my chest. As I wandered through the ship, I found myself drawn to the main dining hall. It was enormous, floor-to-ceiling windows, polished tables, soft golden lights. Families laughed. Couples toasted. The clatter of silverware and a murmur of conversation filled the air. I took a seat alone near the window, partly to watch the sunset, partly to gather my thoughts. I didn't expect anyone to approach me, but someone did. A man, maybe a few years younger than me, with neatly combed silver hair and the confident posture of someone who had seen life from every angle. He sat 2 tables away from me, reading a book while eating in a calm, deliberate way. Something about him felt grounded, steady, like a man who had endured storms and come out wiser. He looked up, caught my eye, and offered a polite smile. A real one. Not the plastic kind people wear when trying to get something out of you. I hesitated, then stood and walked toward him. "Excuse me," I said softly. "Would you mind some company? I hate eating alone." He closed his book and gestured to the seat across from him. Not at all. Sit, please. I sat down. I'm Evan, I said, extending my hand. Martin, he replied warmly. Martin Hale. Nice to meet you. We talked lightly at first. Where we were from, how long we'd been widowed, what brought us on the cruise. But it didn't take long before he noticed something deeper beneath my words. You seem tense, he observed. Not in a judgmental way. Just like a man who's thinking hard about something he doesn't want to think about. I paused, caught off guard by how perceptive he was. It's my first time traveling alone, I said, trying to deflect. Just getting used to it. Martin studied me for a moment with kind, knowing eyes. If you ever need someone to talk to, he said gently, I'm around. My cabin is on deck 12, number 1247. Don't hesitate. His sincerity shook me a little. It had been so long since anyone spoke to me without expecting something. So long since I felt seen. Thank you, I said quietly. I appreciate it. After dinner, we parted ways, and I continued exploring the ship. I eventually found the library, a quiet place with rows of books, plush chairs, and a few old computers offering limited internet access. Then it hit me. I could send a message to Monroe. I sat at one of the computers, paid the ridiculous internet fee, and typed. Detective, I'm safe for now. Please investigate Jason's gambling debts. I think that's the missing link. Also, they may have someone on this ship. More soon. Evan. I hit send, then logged off. As I left the library, I passed the casino. Lights flashed. Machines chimed. Roulette wheels spun. The sound sucked people in like moths to flames. I paused at the entrance, watching gamblers push chips across tables with reckless confidence or desperate hope. I saw the way stress etched itself onto their faces. I saw the panic when they lost. I saw the cold sweat on foreheads, the trembling hands clutching drinks. And suddenly, I understood Jason in a way I hadn't before. He wasn't just greedy. He was desperate, suffocating, probably drowning in debt, maybe threatened by people far worse than him. He had chosen the ugliest, cruelest solution, but in his mind, it was the only way out. My death wasn't personal. It was profitable. The realization didn't make it hurt less. It made it hurt more. It meant he didn't just betray me. He calculated me. I walked away from the casino feeling sick. That night, I returned to my cabin long enough to grab a sweater before heading to the upper deck. The ocean wind was cold, but refreshing. It cleared my mind, sharpened my senses. As I leaned against a railing, far from the edge, far from danger, I sensed someone approaching. I turned. Martin, I thought I might find you here, he said with a light smile. You left the dining hall looking like a man with a lot on his mind. I wasn't ready to tell him everything. Not yet. But I also didn't want to push him away. A bit, I admitted. Just adjusting. This trip wasn't planned for long. I understand, he replied. Sometimes the things we don't plan become the things that change us the most. The way he said it, steady, calm, unintrusive, made me trust him more than I should have. We walked along the deck together, talking about hobbies, retirement, the strange ache of losing a spouse. Conversation with him felt natural, easy, something I didn't realize I'd been starving for. Eventually, he stopped and turned to me. Evan, he said softly, I'm not trying to pry, but if you're in trouble, you should know you don't have to deal with it alone. Something broke in me then, not fully but enough. I sighed. Martin, have you ever found out someone you trusted completely was capable of hurting you in the worst possible way? His eyes darkened, and he nodded slowly. Yes, he said. Someone I considered a brother. He stole half my company and left me bankrupt for years. Trust, once broken, cuts deeper than betrayal from a stranger. I swallowed hard. Hearing that from him gave me courage. Martin, I whispered, my son is trying to kill me. He didn't flinch. He didn't gasp. He didn't laugh. He simply looked at me with the quiet understanding of a man who has lived long enough to know that even family can turn into danger. Then tell me everything, he said, and I did. Right there, under the moonlit sky, with the ocean stretching infinitely around us, I told him the truth. Jason, the phone call, the insurance, the debts, the plan, the balcony. Martin listened without interrupting, without questioning my sanity, without dismissing me. When I finished, he spoke with simple certainty. "You're in real danger," he said, "but you're not facing it alone anymore. I'm with you." For the first time since the cruise began, the panic inside me softened. Not disappeared, but softened. "Thank you," I whispered. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Evan, let's make sure you survive your own son." I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. After telling Martin everything, my mind wouldn't slow down. Instead, it raced with the force of a storm. Every scenario replayed itself. Every risk, every possible move Jason could make. Every place on this ship where a man could disappear without a trace. I sat on the couch in my cabin, staring at the glass doors leading to the balcony, the place Jason likely imagined my life ending. The thought of stepping out there made my skin crawl. The ocean, beautiful as it was, felt like a silent accomplice to my son's plan. I wasn't going to give him that. Just after sunrise, I forced myself to leave the cabin and meet Martin on the upper deck. He greeted me with 2 cups of coffee, strong, hot, just what I needed to stay sharp. "You didn't sleep," he said, handing me one. "How do you know?" "Your eyes. They're focused but exhausted. That's the look of a man whose survival instinct kept him awake." I tried to smile. "I guess that makes sense." We sat on 2 chairs facing the endless stretch of ocean. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. The ship cut through the waves with a calm hum, but my brain felt like it was vibrating. "We need to think step by step," Martin said finally. "What's the next move?" I took a deep breath. "Jason will definitely contact me again. He wants to keep tabs on me, to see if his plan is progressing. He might even try to direct me into dangerous situations, suggest places, times, vulnerable moments." Martin nodded. "So every call from him becomes evidence." "Yes, exactly. And what about the ship?" he asked. "You think he has someone here?" "I'm almost certain," I replied. "Not family, just someone he hired. Someone he paid to take care of me." Martin looked around the deck. "Then we have to assume the danger is everywhere." "Yes," I agreed. "Every corner, every shadow, every smile." Martin leaned forward. "Then from this moment on, you're not alone on this ship. We stick together. Meals, walks, everything." I looked at him, deeply grateful. "You don't need to put yourself at risk." He shook his head. "Evan, I'm not your bodyguard. I'm your friend. And if someone tried to do this to me, I'd pray that someone had my back." Those words struck me harder than he knew. We spent the next hour exploring the ship systematically. Not like tourists, but like men studying battleground terrain. The lounges, safe. The crowded decks, safe. The quiet stairwells, dangerous. The shadowed hallways, dangerous. The balcony areas, extremely dangerous. We made mental notes. Every escape route. Every blind spot. As we walked through the ship's atrium, filled with bright lights and laughing travelers, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't merely reacting anymore. I was planning. Jason expected a helpless old man, but I wasn't helpless. I was prepared. Late that afternoon, my phone buzzed. "Jason." I felt my stomach tighten, but Martin placed a steady hand on my arm. "Remember," he said quietly, "this is evidence. Let him talk." I answered. "Hey, son." "Dad," he said, forcing cheerfulness. "How's everything? How's the cruise?" "It's good," I replied, matching his tone. "Just exploring. Meeting some new people." "New people," he repeated. "Who?" I looked at Martin, who raised his eyebrows. Already, Jason was trying to measure my surroundings. "Just another passenger," I replied casually. "A man named Martin. He's nice. We've been having meals together." Jason took a moment too long to respond. "Oh," he said finally. "That's good, Dad. Just be careful who you talk to. You know, people take advantage of older travelers sometimes." Martin mouthed silently. "He's trying to isolate you." I kept the conversation light. "I'm all right, son. The people here seem friendly." "Good, good." He cleared his throat. "You checked your cabin balcony yet?" My pulse spiked. He said it casually, like asking about the weather, but I heard the real intention behind it. "Yeah, I lied. It's beautiful. Great view." Jason sounded relieved. "I knew you'd love it. Take pictures if you can. Maybe go out there tonight. The stars are incredible on open water." Martin stared at me in disbelief. Jason wasn't even hiding it anymore. "Oh," I replied evenly, "I'll see. If I'm not too tired." Jason hesitated. Well, okay. Enjoy yourself. Get some fresh air tonight. Call me later. Sure, Jason. Talk soon. I hung up. Stars. Martin scoffed. He's telling you exactly where he wants you. I know. You realize, he continued, if you didn't know what he was planning, that suggestion would have seemed loving. I nodded slowly. That's what scares me the most. We walked to a quiet corner of the lounge, and Martin pulled out a small notepad he'd been keeping in his jacket. This is becoming a pattern, he said, writing quickly. Every call from him contains a hint, a direction, a push toward danger. And every call, I added, proves intent. Exactly. We agreed that from now on, every conversation would be recorded. Every word Jason spoke would be saved. Every lie would become a weapon in my defense. That evening, we went to the ship's main restaurant for dinner. I avoided the balcony near the dining hall, even though people were leaning over it carefree, taking selfies and watching the waves. It was strange how normal everything looked around me. Families laughing, couples clinking glasses, kids running, friends celebrating birthdays. Their world was bright and full of joy. Mine was a maze of survival. Halfway through dinner, I felt it. Someone watching me. A prickling sensation on the back of my neck. I lifted my eyes and scanned the room. At first, no one stood out. Then I noticed him, a man leaning against a pillar near the bar. Mid-40s, clean-shaven, dark hair, wearing a dark shirt that made him blend in but not disappear. He wasn't watching the room. He was watching me. Not with curiosity, not with friendliness, with intent. Martin followed my gaze, and his expression hardened. That him, he whispered. I don't know, I murmured. But he's not just another passenger. We pretended not to see him. Continued eating, talking about nothing. I forced myself to appear relaxed. Inside, every instinct screamed that the man's eyes were carving through me. After dinner, we didn't walk toward my cabin. Instead, we took the long route, up the stairs through the gift shops, down another hall, while keeping track of the man from the corner of our eyes. The moment we reached the elevator hall, he moved. Not fast, not aggressively, just enough to trail behind us at a distance that was neither coincidence nor casual. We entered the elevator. He started walking faster. The doors closed just before he reached us. Martin exhaled hard. Evan, he said, that man is not here for vacation. No, I replied. He's here for me. We stood in silence for a moment. Martin, I can't go back to my cabin tonight. You're not, he said firmly. You're staying in my cabin. And tonight, we figure out how to turn this entire plan against them. His cabin was larger, with a pull-out sofa and a separate sleeping area. When we entered, I felt a wave of relief, for now, at least. Martin locked the door. Evan, he said, from here on out we play offense, not defense. I nodded. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something like hope. Not because I was safe, but because I wasn't alone anymore. Jason expected his father to crumble. Instead, I was becoming someone he didn't plan for. Someone dangerous. That night in Martin's cabin felt like the longest of my life. Even with the door locked and the curtains drawn, my mind kept imagining footsteps in the hallway, quiet attempts at the lock, shadows under the door, every possible danger. I sat on the couch while Martin reviewed his notes. His calmness helped ground me. Evan, he said finally, we need to assume that man will try again. He won't stop just because he lost sight of you tonight. I nodded slowly. He knows my cabin. He knows the balcony. He knows the ship's layout. He knows everything he needs. And that's why, Martin continued, we're going to get ahead of him. He pulled out a pen and drew a rough map of the ship on a notepad. The hallways, the stairwells, the upper deck, the atrium, the pools. This ship is full of blind spots, but also full of witnesses, he said. We need to use that. I watched him work, amazed at how focused he was. He looked like a general preparing a war strategy, not a man on a vacation cruise. Finally, he sat back. Tomorrow, we'll start collecting evidence in earnest. But for now, you need rest. I shook my head. I can't sleep, Martin. Every time I close my eyes, I see that man watching me. He rested a hand on my shoulder. I know, but you're safe here. And tomorrow, we go on offense. I looked at him, grateful beyond words. Martin, I don't know how to repay you. He smiled faintly. You don't have to. You do the same for me. I wasn't so sure. Martin was braver than he realized. I lay on the sofa that night, listening to the gentle hum of the ship cutting through the water. Somewhere on the other side of the wall, hundreds of happy passengers slept peacefully. Meanwhile, I waited for morning with my heart in my throat. But dawn eventually came. Martin woke me with a cup of coffee. "Big day," he said with a tense smile. I nodded, rubbing my eyes. "Where do we start?" "The ship's security office," he replied. "We need them on our side." We made our way down to the third floor, where the security offices were located. The hallway felt colder, more official than the rest of the ship. At the front desk stood a young officer who looked barely 25. He greeted us politely but distractedly. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" Martin stepped forward. "We need to speak with the head of security." "It's urgent. Do you have an appointment?" "No," Martin said firmly, "and we don't need one." The officer hesitated, then picked up the phone. After a tense minute, he hung up and nodded. "Right this way." We were led into a small conference room where a tall, broad-shouldered man awaited us. He had the kind of presence that immediately commanded respect. Stern eyes, authoritative posture. "I'm Chief Security Officer Grant," he said. "What seems to be the problem?" I took a deep breath and told him everything. And for the first time, I didn't hold back a single detail. I told him about the phone call, my son's words, his plan, his debts, the man following me, the balcony, all of it. Chief Grant didn't interrupt. He took notes, nodded occasionally, but mostly watched me with the expression of a man trying to understand the full weight of a situation. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Reed," he said slowly, "if everything you told me is true, then your life is in imminent danger." Hearing those words spoken aloud made my stomach twist. "Yes," I whispered, "I know." He tapped his pen against the table thoughtfully. "You said you saw a suspicious man following you last night. Could you identify him if you saw him again?" "Without a doubt," I said. Grant stood. "Come with me." He escorted us to a large room filled with monitors, dozens of screens showing live feeds from security cameras across the ship. Passengers entering casinos, children playing at the pool, couples dancing, hallways, stairwells. "Show me the atrium footage from last night between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. Grant ordered an employee. The feed rewound. The camera zoomed in. And there he was, the man in the dark shirt, watching me, following me, staring without blinking. "Do you know him?" Grant asked. I shook my head. "No, I've never seen him before this cruise." "And you're sure he isn't a crew member?" "Absolutely." Grant studied the footage carefully. "He's tracking your movements. This is deliberate. This confirms your story." He turned to another officer. "Find him. Bring him in for questioning." Then he turned to me. "Mr. Reed, listen carefully. Until further notice, you are under the ship's protection. You will not walk anywhere alone. You will not return to your cabin. And you will not go near any balcony." My breath trembled. "Thank you." Grant continued. "We'll station plainclothes officers around key areas. If this man makes another move, we'll catch him." A mix of relief and fear washed through me. This was real, official, documented. Jason's plan was now part of a criminal investigation. But the day wasn't over. After leaving security, Martin and I headed back toward his cabin. But on the way, my phone buzzed again. "Jason." I hesitated, my palms sweating. Martin nodded. "Answer." "Put on speaker. Hold it low." I took a breath and answered. "Hey, Dad," Jason said, sounding cheerful, too cheerful. "How's the trip going today?" "It's good," I replied carefully. "Just exploring with my friend." "Still with that guy?" "Martin, right?" My blood ran cold. He remembered the name. Of course he did. "Yeah," I said casually. "He's good company." Jason's tone softened. "I'm glad you're having fun, Dad. You deserve it. But make sure you take time for yourself, too. Maybe go somewhere quiet. Enjoy the views." He said like a suggestion, but I heard the command underneath. "Maybe later," I replied. Jason paused. "You didn't go out on your balcony last night." It wasn't a question. Martin's eyes widened. My heart froze. "How do you know that?" I asked, trying to hide my fear. "Oh," Jason said quickly. "I just assumed you'd tell me if you did." Lies. Clumsy lies. He was rattled. He was checking the progress of the plan. "Well," I said, "I was tired last night. I went to bed early." "Okay," he said slowly. Well, enjoy today. And Dad, yes, Jason, I love you. The words came out stiff, forced, unnatural. I love you too, I replied quietly. Then the line clicked. For a long moment, I just stared at the phone in my hand. Martin finally broke the silence. He's panicking. He's trying to confirm whether the plan is unfolding. Which means, I whispered, he's expecting something to happen soon. Martin nodded darkly. Very soon. The rest of the day passed with tension thick enough to choke on. Security officers shadowed us discreetly. Every time a stranger walked too close, my body tensed. Every time a door opened, I jumped. By late afternoon, I felt drained, physically, mentally, emotionally. Martin and I sat near the quiet coffee lounge, reviewing everything we had. The calls, the recordings, the suspicious man, security footage, my son's motivations, his debt, his insurance plan. We're close, Martin said, tapping the table. Very close. One more slip from Jason, and we'll have everything. I nodded. But before I could respond, the same man, the one from last night, walked into the lounge. He didn't see us at first, but when he did, his eyes sharpened. Martin grabbed my forearm. Stay still. Do not react. The man walked slowly, deliberately, toward the back exit, pretending to look around but clearly assessing whether I was alone. Security wasn't far. I saw one of the undercover officers subtly shift his posture, preparing. The man hesitated, then walked out of the lounge. And I realized something chilling. He wasn't giving up. He was waiting for the right moment. Waiting for a moment when the ship's noise, chaos, and crowds would give him cover. And that moment wasn't far away. Tomorrow night was the captain's gala party. The perfect distraction. The perfect night for a murder that looked like an accident. I looked at Martin. He already knew what I was thinking. Evan, he said quietly, tomorrow night, everything ends. And I realized he was right. One way or another. The morning of the captain's gala party felt different, charged, heavy, like the air before a storm. I woke early in Martin's cabin, heart pounding before I was even properly conscious. For a moment, I had to remind myself where I was, why I was here, and how far things had already gone. The sheets felt warm, but my body felt cold. Martin was already awake, sitting at the small desk, notebook open, pen tapping rhythmically. You didn't sleep much, huh? He asked gently. I don't think I slept at all, I admitted, sitting up with a sigh. Every time the ship creaked, I thought someone was coming. He closed his notebook and stood. Today is the day, Evan. Tonight, everything changes. But we can't afford mistakes. Then tell me what the plan is, I said, rubbing my eyes. Martin nodded and unfolded the sheet of paper he'd been working on since dawn. First, he said, you'll attend the gala party exactly as expected. You need to appear normal to everyone, including the man who's following you. I swallowed. He'll be there. I know he will. He will, Martin said, and he'll watch your movements carefully. That's exactly what we want. I felt a tremor run through me. Wanting a murderer to follow me felt like madness. But while you're there, Martin continued, security will already be positioned around your cabin. Undercover. Invisible to everyone but us. He pointed to a mark on the map. You won't return to your cabin. You'll go straight from the gala to the crew stairwell. I'll meet you there, and the officers will be waiting to catch him entering your room. I took a slow breath. He'll think I'm there. He'll expect I'll be drunk or tired from the party. Exactly, Martin said. He won't know the ship is ready for him. I nodded, though dread still gnawed at my stomach. And what about Jason? I asked quietly. Martin sighed. He's going to call tonight. He'll want confirmation that the plan is unfolding, that you're returning to your cabin, that you're following the script he wrote. And I answer, you answer exactly the way a father who trusts his son would answer, Martin said. We need him to incriminate himself one more time. I leaned back slowly, absorbing everything. 7 days ago, I boarded this ship thinking it was a gift. Now I was preparing for a night where someone hired to kill me would walk into a trap. Around noon, we went to see Chief Grant again. His presence still felt like a lifeline. We're setting everything up, he told us. We've placed 2 agents disguised as housekeeping staff on your floor, 2 more as maintenance workers near the stairs, and 2 dressed as passengers in the hallway itself. My throat tightened. Thank you. He nodded. Do not break routine today. Not even a little. The moment that man believes something is off, he'll change the plan. We need him to walk right into our hands. Grant then placed a small device in my palm. A tiny black square, no larger than a coin. Press this once, and the nearest security officer will be alerted immediately, he said. Press it twice, and everyone will come to you. I stared at it, feeling the weight of what that meant. This wasn't just a safety measure. It was a reminder that I was a hunted man. Do I keep this in my pocket during the gala? I asked. Yes, Grant said. And keep your phone on you, too. If your son calls, record everything. He turned to me, his expression hardening. Mr. Reed, I've been doing this job for 18 years. I've seen people try to do unbelievable things to their family. But your case, it's one of the worst I've seen. So listen to me very carefully. We are going to protect you. You will walk off this ship alive. I nodded, clutching the device. For the first time that day, my breath eased just a little. The day dragged on slowly, painfully. Every hour felt like 3. Martin and I stayed in his cabin, avoiding public spaces as much as possible. We played cards for a while, though neither of us really paid attention to the game. Mostly we sat in silence, waiting for the night. Around 3 p.m., my phone buzzed. Jason. Just seeing his name sent a cold spike down my spine. Martin gestured for me to answer and put the call on speaker. I swallowed hard and picked up. Hey, Dad, Jason said. How's your day going? I forced my voice to sound light. Good, son. Just relaxing. I'm looking forward to the captain's party tonight. Are you going? He asked quickly. Yes, I replied. Of course. I want to enjoy all of it. That's great, he said. Just don't stay too late, okay? You know how you get when you're tired. My skin crawled. He was trying to control the timing. I'll keep that in mind, I said. And Dad, after the party, go straight back to your cabin. No wandering. No exploring the decks at night. Promise me that. I glanced at Martin. Of course, I said. Straight to my cabin. Jason exhaled, but it wasn't a relieved breath. It was satisfaction. Perfect, he said. I love you, Dad. I love you too, I murmured. The line disconnected. My hand trembled as I lowered the phone. Martin leaned closer. He's anxious. He's expecting something tonight. I know, I whispered. It feels like he's watching me from a distance. Martin nodded, which means we're doing everything right. At 6 p.m., we began to get ready for the gala. I put on my best navy blue suit, the one I hadn't worn since Catherine's funeral. My hand shook as I buttoned the shirt. Martin helped me adjust my tie. You clean up well, he said with a small smile. I wish I were dressing up for a normal night. I whispered. I know. When we stepped into the hallway, I could already see 2 disguised security officers stationed casually nearby. They didn't look at me, but every few seconds, they discreetly scanned the area. I felt a little safer, but also more exposed. As we approached the ballroom, I felt eyes on me. And when I turned, I saw him. The man, wearing a black suit this time, watching me, pretending to mingle, pretending to laugh at a joke someone told him, but always keeping me in sight. My stomach dropped. He's here, I whispered. Martin nodded. Good. Let him see you. We entered the ballroom with a crowd of passengers. The music was lively, the chandeliers bright, the food arranged beautifully across long tables. People smiled and danced. Meanwhile, I felt like I was walking toward the edge of a cliff. Martin stayed close. We chatted with passengers, drank sparkling water, moved around the room to maintain the illusion that this was just another night of fun on a cruise ship. But the whole time I could feel him, watching me, waiting for the moment I would leave. When the clock hit 10:45 p.m., Martin leaned in and whispered, "It's time." My pulse thundered. And him. He's been tracking you the entire night. Trust me, he's ready to follow. I nodded, trying not to show fear. I moved toward the exit, slowly, as if I were just tired after an evening of dancing and socializing. I felt dozens of eyes on me, but only one pair mattered. I stepped into the hallway. Martin stayed inside for another 5 minutes, as planned. The hallway felt too quiet. Every shadow looked sharp. Every sound echoed. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I didn't look back. I walked toward the elevator and pressed the button. The doors opened. I stepped inside. Right before they closed, I saw him. Walking faster. Coming toward me. My chest tightened. The doors slid shut. I exhaled shakily. He was following the script. I didn't go to my cabin. Instead, I stepped out on the floor below and hurried to the emergency staircase. My legs felt weak, but adrenaline kept me upright. Martin was waiting for me. Eyes sharp, breath held. He followed. I whispered. "I know," he said. "Security just confirmed he's headed to your cabin." A sudden crackle sounded from Martin's radio. Captain Grant had given him one. "Target approaching cabin 732. Repeat, target approaching." I pressed myself against the wall, trembling. Another update came. Targeted door. Attempting entry. My stomach lurched. Then, breach confirmed. Engaging now. Muffled shouting. A loud crash. Movement. Martin grabbed my hand. "It's over, Evan. We got him." But I couldn't speak. My son's hired killer had just walked into a trap meant for me. And now everything would unravel. Everything. The moment I heard the shouts echoing from the 8th floor, my knees almost gave out. Martin steadied me with a hand on my arm, guiding me away from the stairwell window where I'd been frozen in place, listening. "It's done," he murmured. "He's in custody. You're safe." Safe. A word that felt impossible. My mind replayed every moment of the past week. The phone call, the one-way ticket, the man in the colored shirts, Jason's careful questions, his fake concern, his instructions about the balcony. All of it flooded into me like cold ocean water. "Come on, Evan," Martin said gently. "Let's go upstairs. Captain Grant wants to speak to you." I nodded, though my legs still trembled from the shock. We walked up the steel staircase to the 12th floor, where the security command station waited behind a locked door. The hallway felt surreal now, like every step was carrying me further away from the man I had been just days ago. The officer at the entrance verified our names and opened the door. The moment I stepped inside, Chief Grant turned toward me. His expression was fierce and focused. "Mr. Reed," he said, "we have the suspect in custody." And he did not go quietly. My stomach twisted. What happened? He attempted to flee down the emergency stairs. My officers intercepted him. He struggled, tried to destroy his phone, but we secured everything. "His phone," I whispered. "Yes," Grant said, "and it contains the evidence we expected." He motioned us toward a long metal table in the center of the room. On it lay a cracked smartphone in a sealed plastic evidence bag. 2 officers guarded it on either side as if it were a bomb. Grant slid the bag closer so I could see. "Look here," he said, pointing at the screen. Even through the spiderweb of cracks, I could read the message previews. There it was. "Jason Reed. After the gala. Balcony. No marks. He'll be alone by midnight. Make it look natural. Don't contact me after. Delete everything once it's done." I felt the world tilt under my feet. My son, my only child, writing instructions like he was ordering takeout. Martin stepped closer and squeezed my shoulder. "You have your answer now." But I could barely hear him over the sound of my heartbeat. Chief Grant nodded to an officer behind him. "Bring the suspect out." 2 uniformed officers entered a moment later, escorting the man I had seen stalking me for days. His hands were cuffed behind his back, his face twisted with an ugly mix of anger and fear. When he saw me, something in his expression changed. Not guilt, not remorse, annoyance, like I had inconvenienced him. "You," he said under his breath. But the officers restrained him before he could take a step. Grant stood between us. "You will not address Mr. Reed," he snapped. "You will answer only what I ask." The man glared but nodded. Grant turned to him. "Why were you in passenger cabin 732? "I got turned around," the man muttered. One of the officers barked a laugh. Grant didn't smile. "You had lock-picking tools on you. I fix things sometimes. You had rope in your pocket. For safety, you had instructions from the victim's son telling you how to kill him." The man looked away. Silence hung in the air like smoke. Grant stepped closer, his eyes sharp. "Let me make something very clear. You attempted murder aboard an international vessel. You're going to prison for a long time." The man didn't respond. He didn't have to. His silence said everything. Grant signaled the officers. "Take him to the holding cell." They dragged him out, still cursing under his breath. When the door closed behind him, Grant turned back to me. "Mr. Reed," he said, "this case is now beyond just a family dispute. This is premeditated murder for hire. Once we dock tomorrow morning, the FBI will take custody of the suspect and collect your formal statements. The FBI. My knees wobbled again. This was bigger than I ever imagined. We'll protect you through the night, Grant continued. You are not to leave this floor. We'll prepare a secure room for you. I nodded, though my throat was tight with emotion. Martin guided me into a quiet corner while Grant coordinated with his team. What you're feeling right now, Martin said softly, is normal. The shock, the rage, the grief. No one is supposed to face what you just faced. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I don't even know what I feel, Martin. That's still feeling something, he said with a faint smile. I looked at him. Thank you. If you hadn't been here, I don't know how this would have ended. He placed his hand firmly on my shoulder. You survived because you acted. I just stood beside you. But that wasn't true. He kept me alive. He kept me sane. We stayed in the secure room overnight. It felt strange, sterile, quiet, lit by harsh fluorescent lights rather than the warm glow of a cruise cabin. I tried to sleep on the cot provided, but my mind wouldn't let me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the man entering my cabin. I saw Jason nodding with approval. I saw myself falling over a balcony into dark waters. At one point around 2 a.m., I sat up and whispered into the darkness, "Why, Jason? What?" Martin stirred but didn't wake. I stayed awake until dawn, watching the sky lighten outside the small window. At 6 a.m., the ship made its slow approach into Miami. The shoreline came into view, rows of palm trees, harbors filled with boats, cranes lifting cargo. I realized I had never been so relieved to see land. Grant met us at the door. "It's time," he said. He escorted us down a back staircase and through a service exit to keep me out of sight. There were federal agents waiting at the dock, black jackets, badges, and serious faces. One stepped forward. "Mr. Reed? I'm Agent Ramirez with the FBI. We're taking custody of the suspect now. We'll also be escorting you to give your statement." I nodded, my voice barely steady. "Thank you." One agent whispered to Grant, "Everything you provided is invaluable. Your cooperation will fast-track this case." Grant only nodded, but I saw a flicker of pride in his eyes. He shook my hand firmly. "Mr. Reed, you fought harder than many seasoned survivors I've met. Take care of yourself." "Thank you, Chief," I said, my voice cracking. Then Martin stepped forward. "Are you ready?" Was I? No, but I wasn't backing down. "Yes," I said. "Let's finish this." The next hours were a blur of statements, questions, and legal explanations. I recounted every detail, every call, every message, every moment I realized my son wanted me dead. The agents listened with a mix of professionalism and disbelief. "You handled this incredibly well," Agent Ramirez told me afterward. "Many people don't survive situations like this." "I had help," I replied, glancing at Martin. When the formalities ended, the FBI arranged a secure vehicle to take me to the airport for my flight back to Chicago. Martin insisted on coming with me all the way to the gate. "Evan," he said softly as we stood by the boarding entrance, "you're going home. But you're not the same man who left." "No," I whispered. "I'm not." Though the fear remained lodged in my chest, something else had replaced it. Strength. A strength I never knew I had. Martin hugged me tightly. "Call me the moment you land." "I will," I said. When I boarded the plane and found my seat, emotions surged through me so suddenly that tears spilled down my cheeks. The flight attendant asked softly, "Are you okay, sir?" I nodded. "Yes, I'm okay. For the first time in a long time. I'm okay." As the plane lifted off the ground, leaving Miami behind, I stared out the window at the shrinking coastline and whispered to myself, "It's over. It's really over." But at the same time, I knew it wasn't. There was still one more confrontation waiting for me in Chicago. A confrontation with the son who tried to kill me. When the plane touched down in Chicago, my heart started racing in a way I hadn't felt even on a ship. Facing a hired killer was one thing, but facing my own son, even indirectly, was another kind of battle entirely. I stepped into the terminal with trembling hands. The familiar smell of coffee from airport shops, the hum of people rushing around, it all felt strangely distant. as if I were walking through a life that looked like mine but belonged to someone else. Detective Mercer was waiting for me near baggage claim. He stood with his hands in his coat pockets, scanning the crowd with the sharp eyes of a man who'd spent a lifetime reading danger before anyone else noticed it. When he spotted me, he lifted a hand. "Mr. Reed, over here." I walked toward him, my legs stiff. "Welcome home," he said. "Let's finish this." There was no softness in his voice, no attempt to comfort me. Oddly, that steadiness grounded me. I didn't need pity. I needed justice. We walked to an unmarked black sedan in the loading zone. Mercer drove while I stared out the window, watching the city I'd lived in for more than 60 years go by. It looked the same buildings, same traffic, same gray sky. But I'd changed. Everything in me had shifted. "We'll head straight to the station," Mercer said. "The chief wants to brief you before we move on Michael and Claire." I swallowed hard. "Do they know anything yet?" "No," Mercer said. "We made sure news from Miami wouldn't reach them. They think you're still on the ship, enjoying your relaxing vacation." The bitterness in his voice wasn't directed at me. It was directed at what they'd done. When we arrived at the station, Chief Dalton met me in his office. He was a tall man with tired eyes, the kind of officer who had seen too much but still cared enough to look pained when people suffered. "Mr. Reed," he said, shaking my hand, "I've reviewed everything the FBI sent us overnight. Your son and his partner are going away for a long time." Hearing that made my chest tighten. "Thank you," I said. Dalton gestured for me to sit. Mercer remained standing behind me, like a silent guardian. "I'll be blunt," Dalton said. "This is one of the clearest cases of premeditated attempted murder I've seen. We have the messages. We have the recorded calls. We have testimony from crew security. We have financial records from the detective you hired." He leaned forward. "But before we arrest them, I want to ask you one thing. Are you prepared for what comes next?" I felt the question land heavily. Prepared? Could anyone be prepared to see their own child handcuffed? "I'm prepared," I said softly. "I've been preparing myself since the moment I heard him say, 'It's a one-way ticket.'" Dalton nodded once, a grim acknowledgement. "We're issuing the warrants now," he said, picking up his phone. "Mercer will accompany you. We'll bring them in separately." I exhaled shakily. "Thank you, Chief." This was happening. It was real. There was no turning back. 20 minutes later, I was in the back seat of Detective Mercer's car as we headed toward Jason and Claire's suburban neighborhood. Every street we passed held memories. I remembered driving these roads to drop Jason off at school, to take him to soccer practice, to pick him up when he had the flu. I remembered teaching him how to ride a bike on these same sidewalks, running behind him, steadying him, cheering when he pedaled without wobbling. And now I was arriving to watch him be arrested. Life had a cruel sense of symmetry. Mercer parked a few houses down from theirs. 2 police cars quietly pulled up behind us. No sirens, no lights. Dalton's voice came through the radio. "Units, stand by. Moving on my command." My hands tightened into fists. Claire's SUV was in the driveway. Jason's old silver sedan sat crookedly beside it, like always. They were home. I felt a wave of nausea hit me, and I pressed a hand against my stomach. "Take your time," Mercer said quietly. But time was the one thing that was done with me. I had no more to waste. Dalton's voice finally broke through. "Teams, move in." Mercer opened the car door. "Stay here. I'll tell you when to come out." I nodded. Then he and 2 officers rounded the corner and marched toward the house. I couldn't see the front door, but I heard everything. A loud knock. "Chicago police." "Open the door." A pause. Claire's voice, sharp and irritated. "It's 6 in the morning. What is happening?" "Claire Bennett Reed," an officer said, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder." Her scream cut through the air like a blade. "What? No, that's impossible. What are you talking about?" I sucked in a breath. Jason's voice suddenly blasted through the hallway. "What the hell is going on?" "Don't touch her." More shouting. A struggle. Officers barking commands. Jason yelling something incoherent. Then Claire again, screaming, sobbing. "Evan lied. He's lying. This is a mistake. Jason, do something." Mercer's voice rose firmly. "Jason Reed, turn around and put your hands behind your back. You can't arrest me." Jason yelled. My dad is on a cruise. He's not even home yet. You can't. My heart squeezed painfully. He still thought I was gone. Good. Jason Reed, Mercer repeated. You are under arrest for attempted murder. A sudden, horrible silence. Then Jason's voice, small, shocked, disbelieving. No, no, no. That sound. I will never forget that sound. It was the sound of a man realizing his life was over. Mercer finally came back to the car and opened the door. They're secured, he said softly. If you want, you can come now. I stepped out, knees weak, breath unsteady. As I walked toward the house, 2 officers escorted Claire past me. She glared at me through tear-smudged mascara. You ruined everything, she shrieked. He did it for us. He did it to save us. You selfish old man. I stood still and let her words fall away like dust. Then Jason appeared. Handcuffed, red-eyed, disheveled, completely unhinged. When he saw me, he froze. His face went pale, almost colorless. Dad, he whispered. I looked him in the eyes for the first time since I boarded that ship. Yes, I said, my voice steady. I'm alive. His jaw quivered. Dad, this isn't what it looks like. I didn't. Mercer stepped forward. Save it, Jason. But I held up a hand. No, I said quietly. Let him speak. Jason took a shaky breath. Dad, I didn't mean, I wasn't going to, My voice cut through him like glass. You tried to kill me. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I was desperate, he cried. You don't understand. I was drowning. I needed money. I needed a way out. So, you decided I was worth more dead than alive? I whispered. Jason's tears fell freely now. Dad, please. Please don't do this to me. I didn't do this, I said, my voice breaking. You did. He shook his head, crying harder, begging me with his eyes to deny what was true. But I couldn't save him. Not anymore. Take him, Mercer said. The officers guided Jason toward the squad car. He looked back at me, desperate, terrified. Dad, please, you can fix this. Please don't let them take me. I stood still. I watched, and my silence answered him. When the door closed behind him, I felt something inside me crack, but I didn't break. Mercer placed a hand on my shoulder. It's done. No, I said softly. Now comes the rest. The squad cars pulled away slowly, their engines humming down the quiet suburban street, police lights flashing across every window like ghosts slipping past. I stood in the middle of my son's driveway, watching the red and blue reflections fade until the street fell silent again. Jason was gone. Claire was gone. The house they thought they would enjoy with my inheritance was now nothing but a crime scene. Detective Mercer stayed beside me. He didn't rush me or speak. He knew this was a moment I needed to stand in fully, whether it shattered me or remade me. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. What I felt was something deeper, older, heavier than simple grief. It was the kind of sorrow that came from understanding the truth about someone you once believed you knew. The kind of truth that rewrites your entire past in one cruel moment. At last, Mercer spoke quietly. Do you want to go inside? I hesitated. The idea of stepping into Jason's house, into the place where he and Claire might have discussed how to kill me, felt almost unbearable. But I nodded anyway. Yes, I need to see it. Mercer guided me up the walkway. The front door hung, slightly open from the officer's entry. I pushed it gently. Inside, everything was painfully familiar. Family pictures, the couch I helped Jason pick out, the rug Claire insisted on buying for too much money, the lamp from my old living room that I'd given them as a gift. They had built a home with all the pieces of the life I'd helped create, and they were willing to throw it all away for money. Mercer walked through the hallway while I stayed near the living room, touching the back of the couch lightly, as if I could still feel my son's childhood somewhere in its fabric. My son, my little boy, the one who once asked me if monsters were real. I never thought the answer would someday be him. Mercer returned holding a stack of envelopes and papers. Found these in their office, he said. Bills, letters, final notices. He handed them to me. I didn't want to look, but I needed to. There were gambling debts, private loans with violent reputations attached to the lenders, credit card balances spilling over with red ink, past due notices from 3 different banks. even a foreclosure warning. And then I saw something that nearly made me drop the papers. My house, listed on a loan document. Forgery scrawled in Jason's handwriting to imitate mine. He had mortgaged my home without my knowledge. I sank into the couch, feeling the weight of that betrayal in my bones. He was going to lose everything, I whispered. Mercer sat across from me. People do unthinkable things when they feel cornered. Not this, I said, shaking my head. Most people don't try to kill their father. He didn't argue. He didn't have to. I stayed in that living room for nearly an hour, staring at the remnants of the life Jason had built and destroyed. Finally, Mercer placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Let's get you home. I nodded. Home. The word meant something different now. The drive back felt strangely quiet. We passed old neighborhoods, familiar shops, streets I'd driven countless times. But nothing looked the same. I was different. When we arrived at my house, my real home, I froze for a moment before stepping out of the car. The front yard looked exactly as I'd left it. The old maple tree still cast its wide shadow across the porch. My wind chime tinkled softly in the breeze. It looked peaceful, safe, like a place untouched by evil. But now I knew that wasn't true. For the first time, I locked the door behind me. I walked through each room slowly, touching walls, chairs, the table, the photographs. Everything felt both familiar and foreign, as if I was seeing it through a stranger's eyes. In the kitchen, I sat at the table and covered my face with both hands. That's when the tears finally came. Not because Jason had been arrested. Not because Claire was gone. Not because I had narrowly escaped death. But because I finally accepted the truth. I couldn't save him. Not from death. Not from fear. Not from himself. He had made his choice. And now I had to live with mine. When the tears subsided, I wiped my face and took a deep breath. I wasn't broken. I wasn't weak. I'd simply reached the end of a long, painful chapter. And now, I had to begin a new one. The next months were consumed by legal proceedings, court hearings, testimonies, paperwork, and interviews. I became familiar with courtrooms, audio recordings, and evidence screens that displayed my son's texts with painful clarity. During Jason's trial, our eyes met only once. He looked at me with a mixture of fear, anger, and something that almost resembled regret. But I didn't see my son in that gaze. Not the little boy who once held my hand. Not the teenager who hugged me when he got into his first choice college. Not the young man who asked me to be the best man at his wedding. I saw a stranger who had tried to kill me. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours. Jason Reed was found guilty of attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, and several financial crimes. He was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Claire received 9. I didn't cheer. I didn't celebrate. Justice is never joyful when family is involved. But it was necessary. After the trial, something inside me shifted. The fear and confusion that had followed me like a shadow began to fade, replaced by something I hadn't felt in years. A sense of purpose. I started volunteering at a local support center for older men, fathers, grandfathers, widowers who had been taken advantage of by their families or caretakers. I listened to their stories, offered guidance, and shared my own when it seemed to help. My own son tried to kill me on a cruise ship, I would say softly during group meetings. And I survived because I finally chose myself. Those words always landed with a heavy, honest weight. Men who had been silent for decades began to open up. They trusted me because I had lived through the storm and stepped out stronger. And for the first time in a long time, I felt needed again. As the second anniversary of the cruise approached, I booked myself a small trip to a quiet lakeside cabin in Wisconsin. No cruise ships, no crowds, no balconies. Just me, the water, and the quiet whisper of pine trees. One evening, I stood at the edge of the lake, the sunlight shimmering across the surface like scattered gold. The air smelled clean. The world felt still. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. I'm still here, I whispered. I'm still alive. And I felt proud of the man I had become, proud of the strength I discovered, proud of the life I'd reclaimed. I may have lost a son, but I found myself. And that, in the end, saved me. Did you like my story? Which city are you listening from? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story and want more like it, consider supporting with a super thanks. I appreciate every bit of it. Make sure to subscribe for more real-life stories of strength, survival, and justice. Until the next story, with respect and gratitude, from a father who chose himself.